the Roots of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Root of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. Today is episode 60. Yeah, you heard right. 60. Can you believe it that we actually here? I can't. Each time it really blows my mind. And I just wanted to say, as always, thank you for your continued support. Please make sure that you continue doing so by subscribing on your favorite podcast listening. Please continue to support the show and also go and subscribe on your favorite podcast streaming app so you can be the first to know when a new episode drops, like this one. Now, my guest today, I'm a little bit biased, because she's from Malawi and her name is Chikondi Peno, who's from Malawi but currently studying in Scotland. In this episode, we learned that her interest in science came in secondary school. As she excelled in the science subject, she then went on to go and do a BSc degree for undergrad level. After, she wanted to explore the world of research and then started working at the Malawi Liverpool Welcome Trust. She got some research experience there, but aspired to get in deeper into the academic field, and she was then awarded a scholarship and went on to pursue her master's degree in infectious diseases. Currently, she's now a PhD student at Edinburgh University with the National Institute of Health and Research in the United Kingdom. She's looking at a very interesting area of study. In fact, it's the first time I've heard of the study, called inflammation. The PhD research is focused on respiratory health in children in Africa. We hear about this and why is it so important. Further, I chat with Chikondi and we discuss how international students currently are dealing, with the pandemic. And we also talk about all of the challenges that she faced and some issues of anxiety being away from your loved ones. Talk about all of this and so much more. Let's go. Hi, Chikondi. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a great pleasure. And this one is extra special because, from the same motherland. So I'm super excited.
I'm honored, I should say.
Yeah.
I'm excited too.
I am so excited. It goes without saying that there's always going to be bias towards people from your own motherland. So it's really exciting for me to chat with others from Malawi. And with that being said, Chikondi, I already took the cat out of the bag and said that you're from Malawi. But please may you introduce yourself for the other people who do not know who you are. So who's Chikondi? Where are you currently based? Where are you originally from? And what are you currently doing?
Like you already said, I'm from Malawi. So I was born and I was raised in Malawi for almost all my life now. That's where I did most of my school, now based in Edinburgh. And this is the first time I'm out of Malawi for quite a long time. And here I'm doing my PhD in information with the University of Edinburgh.
Oh, awesome. So before we get into the science, as usual, I love to know people away from the science. So you mentioned that you've lived in Malawi for basically your whole entire life, and it's only now that you moved for your studies in Scotland. So, and even when we had a chat separately, you called yourself, and I quote, a typical Malawian girl. So I don't know what that means.
Well, I think I really don't have much going on in my life. So probably that's the typical Malawian kind of thing. And if you quite know, most of the Malawians are introverts, I could say, or modest. So I would define myself as like, well, I'm not any different from any Malawian, that's just me.
No, fantastic. So speaking about Malawians and whatnot, I just wanted to ask you, with having lived your life in Malawi, what are some of your favorite sites? With somebody who's like, wow, why are we fussing about Malawi? Mm-hmm. Like, I always try to tell my friends, like, guys, you need to go to Malawi. You need to see these places. So maybe coming from somebody else, what are some of your favorite sites in Malawi that that you would like, if you had some of your friends who are in Scotland or
Yeah.
anyone else, you'd want them to go and see?
Okay, so I think that's where also the typical Malawian being, you know how we appreciate that we have everything beautiful and stuff, but I don't think myself I've really explored Malawi. So I would say that my opinion would be biased. Of course, I've been to the lake, I've been to the national parks and stuff, but I don't think I have really used it. But still, I have favorite places. So I did my undergrad in Zomba with Chancellor College, University of Malawi. So far, I think if someone wants to come to Malawi and just explore or even stay, I would refer them to Zomba. I think the whole thing that is just a beautiful city for me. It's just small, not much going on, which I think I like. And it has beautiful scenery, the plateau, the dam, and just the hills and stuff. I think it's the botanical gardens. It's just a beautiful city for me. So I think unlike other people who would automatically go to Lake Malawi, I think I would say someone to, I think you just go and explore Zomba, go for a hike for something different. So I think Zomba has been one of my favorite sites in Malawi.
Oh, okay, that's great. Like you're absolutely right. Like I always say the lakes and the national parks. And even before you described it, you said something which I think is typical to most people who live in a particular area, that when you live somewhere, you kind of don't get the chance to explore. Like you don't get to be a tourist, because it's hard for you to be a tourist in your own country. Like I have to say, only after I went, we moved to South Africa, and we now make it a thing that when we try and go back to Malawi, we actually try and see these different places. But prior to that, nobody really was like, oh, let's go here.
I think that's quite right. When you are there, you just take everything for granted that, well, it's not a priority or something. But when you go out, and then I think you really need some place where you can just go and relax and put the weight out of you. So I think that really works well. And I think also, I think as Malawians, we really don't have this like vacation kind of spirit, I would say. Probably it could come from monetary things, or just being grown up of not getting used to it as if it's not just in us. But I would say that most of even my friends growing up, we haven't really been to places just for vacation or something. So probably this is something that as Malawians, we don't do quite a lot. But now I can testify that I feel that it is an important aspect of life. So when I'll change my ways now. I'll change my ways.
I love it. But I mean, you're right. Vacationing is a privilege to most people, and we can't just say like, oh, everybody wants to vacation. I mean, we all know that most of these places usually cater for tourists, and the prices to the conversion of the Malawian kwacha, it just doesn't make sense sometimes. So, but I think if you have the ability and the privilege, it's always really good to take that up and to go. And, as we further develop you being growing up in Malawi, I think it's only right for us then for you to please just explain your journey, for us to rewind all the way back to the beginning of your story. So how does Chikondi get into the science? Was it an influence of some family members, or was it one of those things that you just like, oh, I'm doing science?
So actually, I would define my my journey as a funny one. Growing up, I didn't grow up around scientists. My dad was an accountant and my mom was just home. So there was no one at the moment that I was growing up that was doing any sciences, apart from when I was in secondary school. That's when one of my sisters enrolled in like a nursing school, and then my brother followed to do medicine. But other than that, I haven't been with people that were doing like hardcore science at home. So I turned out that when I think it was just an inherent thing that I just desired to do science, mostly because, of course, I was also determined and also encouraged because I was better at sciences as compared to the humanities subjects. This inspired me, and I grew up an interest in sciences. I would say that my real desire to do now research or health sciences started when I was in my undergrad. I remember in my fourth year, we had this small project where I did with this other lecturer. So it was part of my fourth year project. So we went out to collect some data, analyze that, and then I was like, "Oh, wow, this is quite interesting." And then I started growing up. I think I want to do this a little bit more. So when I went out of college, I was looking for sites in Malawi. Places where they do research, because now I was like, well, I want to do research. I want to do more science and stuff like that. So that's when I came across Malawi Liverpool Welcome Trust. So I was like, how do I get in? Because I didn't know anyone there. And it was so hard to just to know where to start from. So I asked a friend who actually my sister, who said, "Oh, probably I know someone," and then she referred me to this other person who was working as an administrator. And then she was like, "Oh, what did you do?" And then I was like, "Oh, I was in Chancellor College. I did biology and chemistry." I was like, "Oh, can you work as a microscopist?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I can do that." And then she was like, "Oh yeah, there is this girl who is going to maternity leave and she might need cover for 3 months. We might not promise anything that can happen during that time, but probably it could be your way in." I was like, "Oh yes, let's go for it." So I was interviewed for the microscopist job, and then they took me in, and then that was the start of everything, because this is a research facility, I would say research center. So that's when I saw really good research going on, and I just got excited, and it captured me. And I was like, "Oh yes, I think I'm in the right place to grow." So that's how I really got into this research science career.
That's pretty interesting. So talk me through some more of this time at the research center. So this was just after your undergraduate degree. How long did you stay there, and what sort of things did you end up doing there? And I think that's actually very good, because you actually got some work experience, right?
That's very true. Actually, I think that's the only place I've worked all my life. So
it's a lot more than some of us, trust me.
So after my microscopist work, they were looking for a lab technician for this other project. And that project was looking into vaccines. It was a vaccine surveillance project. So that time they were rolling out, I don't know if you know about rotavirus vaccine in Malawi. So they were trying to see how the vaccine works, effectiveness and stuff like that. So they were looking someone who could help in processing the samples and just handling the lab work. So after my 3 months as a stand-in for the microscopist job, I got the lab research technician job, and I would say that after I got in, I made my intentions clear that I want to progress, to advance in this career. So I'm looking for opportunities that will make me up there. And good thing enough, I think it is quite a good environment, I should say, because the person one I worked with, he was like, what do you want to do? And then I would explain, okay, I want to do like a master's and then probably go into do a PhD, like this whole academia journey and stuff like that. And then he was like, okay, all right, we will look into it and make sure that you get there while you're working here as well. So there it was more of doing molecular biology work, so just DNA extractions, a couple of PCRs, and I would also some microbiology work, like just growing bacteria and stuff. And then after a year, I was lucky, I would say. So MLW, which is, I would just refer it to as MLW, which is Malawi Liverpool Welcome Trust. That time it was also offering scholarships, which came with the Welcome Trust funding. So I managed to get one of those, but then to do a master's online. So I enrolled for a master's with London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. So this was in infectious diseases. So I was working while doing my master's at the same time, so it was quite challenging, but I think, I received much support that I managed to do. I finished my master's and then started to looking for PhDs. And luckily enough, I managed to secure this one, I would say. So with, it's called the Mucosal Pathogen Research Unit, which is under National Institute of Health Research here in the UK. So they have some funding, and they have a consortium of all collaborators in Africa working on mucosal pathogens, so respiratory pathogens and anything that causes pneumonia and stuff like that. But the research is focused on Africa, which I kind of liked as well. So I got here, and then the project that I chose was based in Edinburgh. So that's how I found myself in Edinburgh at the moment.
Wow, what a story. It's amazing how, your path, it wasn't properly planned, but it just seemed like everything just fell in place at the right time. Hey, it sounds like it.
Oh my God, yeah.
And you mentioned that your research, the main reason why you loved it was that it's got interests in Africa, and it deals with some of these issues of respiratory. That word always gets me. Respiratory health. Respiratory health, and yours is and the African country that you're actually focused on is Gambia, and you're specifically investigating how bacteria found in the respiratory tract influences the disease outcome or health outcome of first year of life. So can you tell us more about this work and why is it so important?
I'm working on bacterial pathogens. So I shouldn't say bacterial pathogens, but bacterial communities, because I think with the advancement in science right now, we know that the bacteria that sometimes cause disease is normally carried by you in your respiratory tract, so it lives in harmony with the host. But then what turns this a very this good relationship into a more like of a pathogenesis kind of relationship is not quite well known. And this can also, it happens probably, I would say that, for example, in children, one child can be colonized with the same pathogen as the other one, but you would say that the one child could get sick while the other one would not. And we don't not fully understand this, why this is the case. So using this, what we're calling the molecular ecology view, so looking at the bacteria that's colonizing your respiratory tract as one community, and how this, what influence turns this a harmonized community into a more of a pathogenic response is not well known. So my research basically is trying to look at, I would say, profiles related to health and which ones are related to disease. And then where this is leading is that we're looking for find windows of opportunity or ways on how we can prevent that from happening. So if we know that, oh no, probably this child be prone to respiratory infections, maybe we can have prevention measures, whether it's probiotics or something that could help not to disturb this community to lean towards a diseased state. So that's probably in the wrong line. And what is not known now is that, I should add that it is that this community is shaped out by different factors. So this includes environmental factors as well. So for example, what I'm calling this community is called the microbiome. Maybe you have heard about it.
Yes.
And so we know that the microbiome is affected by several factors, and environmental factors are just one of them. And we know that lifestyle and also geography has an influence on how your bacteria looks. So a lot of this research has been done here, and it has been shown that probably this is really important in human health. But there is nothing much that's going on in Africa. So I was excited to jump in on this project, so we see how we can, how this can be applied in an African setting. And also considering that that's where the huge burden of respiratory disease is, probably I would say that if anything comes in terms of interventions, prevention measures and stuff, and even improved treatments, it would benefit more African society. But first, we need to know what in an African setting is related to disease and is related to health in terms of the microbiome.
This is so interesting. And like you said, it's really good that, in the case of most sciences these days, that a lot of work is being done in the West, but we don't know whether the results that they're finding, is it really the same with the people who are in Africa? Like how you said, there's a lot of environmental factors can affect some of these findings, right? And with that being said, I'm curious to know why Gambia, or was it just, or was it I don't know, the funding's decision, or was there a main reason behind the African country of Gambia?
Okay, so I would say that it was a convenient choice.
Okay.
In terms that there was already a big projects that were going on, so I would simply embed my studies in there rather than setting up one. Right. So it was quite of a convenient and most possible situation for me to use this Gambian cohort. But I think it is a good representative of what happens anywhere else. So I was also happy to jump on it. I was like, oh yes, fine. Of course, if I given a choice, I would be like, oh yeah, we need to study this in Malawian children. But
I see the bias already.
Yeah, but I think this is where we start from, and there are a lot of, I think it's going to be applicable everywhere. Of course, in the long line, I would love to take this to a Malawian setting and also like just study this whole thing so we can compare between countries and harmonize whatever research findings that we have. But yeah, we need to start from there. And then Gambia was just the right place for me to get embedded in and do this kind of work with the Gambian cohorts that were already going on.
No, I mean, if you can find yourself into a place where it's easier for you to get on the ground running, the better. I think the beauty of science is that we always have to replicate the results anyway. So if not you, somebody else is going to do a multi-location trial, it's going to happen one way or another. And I mean, your research is part of a bigger multi-location trial because you took it from the work that's currently being done in the West, and now you're bringing it into Africa. And I think you can find, you already know that's the bigger picture. And who knows, maybe one day you will lead the Malawian phase of it, and then you can come back here and be like, and remember what I said? Here I am. And we can talk about your findings here.
It is my dream that whatever comes out of this study benefits the whole of Africa as a whole, because just as a continent, we share a lot of common traits. So I think it's going to do a good job, a greater good in terms of African. Yeah.
Of course. And Chikondi, your work is actually very interesting. And I mean, like you said, you're dealing with respiratory problems. And I mean, I'm going to bring it here because we can't run away from this thing called COVID, this big elephant that's in the room. I think when you started this, I'm sure you didn't expect that we'll be in a pandemic. Nobody could have ever foreseen what we are currently experiencing. And with COVID, it does have, it's partly, it's a virus, of course. I know you're dealing with bacteria. So that's, I know the immunologists will come at me about those are two totally different things, and I don't even want to get into it because it's not my fight. But I just wanted to find out, with that being said, has the COVID played a little bit of influence in your research in terms of some of the findings? Has there been any correlations?
But one part of the research that I'm doing also, we are looking at viral bacteria interactions, I would say. So probably this is more of a similar to COVID, but this time around we are looking more at influenza, so asymptomatic influenza, using a live attenuated influenza vaccine as a model to study viral and bacterial interactions, like what happens when you have a viral infection. So I would say that in terms of viral bacterial infections, interactions, or just viruses, they share, I would say, similar traits. So for example, right now, of course, I haven't seen much coming out, but there are studies that are looking at how does your microbiome differs from those that are probably just affected with COVID, but maybe they have like a mild disease, and how does that differ from someone who has severe disease? Because I think it is quite clear that people are COVID is manifesting differently in different people. Some are just asymptomatically carrying it. Some have got like just probably like a flu or something for a short time and then they're well. And some, they have to be probably intubated or ventilated to get better. So there are these similarities between viruses and all the viruses, I would say. And even the community that I'm studying is bacteria, but we know that viruses are there at the same time as well, including as well fungi. So it's not like studying bacteria in isolation, but we should also notice, it is well known that viruses, bacteria, fungi, they all interact with the host and stuff. But however, I would think that actually COVID has highlighted how important or crucial respiratory infections are. Because when I was doing, even I would say when I was doing my master's in infectious diseases, I met someone who was like, oh, well, why are you studying infectious diseases? I mean, we are past that. Now this is, this is a non-communicable disease era, diabetes and stuff. I don't think this is coming back. So I think also COVID has manifested differently in terms of that it is bringing this whole infectious disease, non-communicable diseases together, because I think maybe you have heard that probably maybe having diabetes, having probably like high blood pressure are some of the risk factors for COVID. So I think everything is now coming in harmony, which is a thing that's really, it's really interesting in terms of how this or these respiratory viruses and whatever it's also going out there is manifesting together.
And you're right. I think whoever said that to you now must be kicking themselves in the face. You should send them an email like, by the way, remember what you said. Remember what you said. No, but you're absolutely right. I think as COVID has really highlighted a lot of things that we thought we were past, like what you just said now. We didn't think that we'd be having a pandemic. Like we thought we were dealing with bigger, and I say this in inverted commas, bigger issues. And I think the work of immunologists or people even like yourself who are working on these type of things are now brought into the forefront. And I think that's the beauty, the good part of it. I mean, COVID has got a lot of bad, but the good part of it is that people have become more aware. I think we're just taking it for granted. We didn't even realize that, like you said, that there's a correlation between these issues such as your diabetes, your high blood pressure, etc., to kind of link to getting something like influenza, a different type of influenza, for example. So I think it was a big wake-up call for everybody. It was a good wake-up call for everybody, the scientists and the people who are not in science. So I think it's going to be a great era for a lot of research, a lot of innovation, and a lot of good things that are actually going to come out of this really bad time.
Yeah, actually, I think I totally agree with you. Now, I think we know that the interventions that have been happening in a slower rate now have been accelerated even more with the pandemic, which is not a good thing. But I think we have benefited. There are some benefits from this COVID because we have seen research coming into light, research guiding on what to do. We would say that this thing has been seen probably before. For example, I am not sure if you have read about the Spanish influenza. This is the pandemic that happened in 1918. But then we would see similar trends, people masking out then, and now also you're being told to mask up. So just like lockdowns, staying at home and stuff like that. But now I think it's quite different because we have now like the technology to look at these things at an accelerated speed, I would say. So as just like the vaccine has been developed in quite just 1 year, I think that's incredible in terms of science. But it's because all these advancements in sciences have led to this particular thing. So I think it is quite good to see all this coming to light and knowing that the science that we do can really, really benefit a lot of people, even including responding to the pandemics like this.
And I mean, this is why we all do science at the end of the day. I don't think as much as I think, the majority of scientists do it for the impact, because I mean, we don't spend hours and hours just for our health, because it's really actually detrimental to our health more than anything. But that's a story of another day. So it's all for the, and then what, the human impact.
It's for the greater good, and I think it's quite a privilege to see everything come to light, even not in the best case scenario in the pandemic, but you would see that there is actually a substantial contribution of science in terms of just keeping the world going,
Definitely. And I look forward to see more of that. And while we're still on this pandemic talk, we're focusing now on the good parts, but I mean, for everybody, the pandemic has shown us more of the bad parts. And you mentioned earlier that for you, this is the longest time you've been away from home, and you're in another whole different country, and there's lockdowns. And I know for a lot of people who are in the diaspora, it's really hard. Some people haven't been able to go home for over a year now. I think we're almost approaching a year, because some were hoping to go home during Christmas break or in the middle of the year, but everything has kind of shut down. So I wanted to just ask you, in terms of how has it like affected you, because worse now in many parts of Africa, especially in the southern parts of Africa, COVID is really now picking up. Like in the first wave, it was there, but it wasn't really, you didn't really know somebody that was affected or infected by the virus. But right now we have names of people So being far away from home, how are you dealing that and watching it on the news or seeing it on WhatsApp or hearing it from the family?
I would say scary is the word. It is scared because when the pandemic started back there in, I think I would say it was a blessing in disguise. So this is what happened in February 2020, I managed to travel home, but it wasn't for like a vacation or something. We were supposed to have a workshop in Malawi. So I went there to just to sort out some things and prepare, because I was just to prepare everything for the workshop. And then while I was there, and then this thing just escalated, and then there were all these lockdowns, flights canceled and stuff like that. So I was stuck in Malawi for like 5 months. So I went there for a 2 weeks visit, and I was there for 5 months.
Oh man.
So I think that for me, that was quite like I was in a relaxed state, because I was in a country where it wasn't West hit. I was with my family then, and it was just good to be closer to your family during those times. Of course, my PhD wasn't going on well at that time, but I was just trying to make the best out of what I had then. And then I came back here in July, and then now you hear all this, like just this badly hit COVID cases escalating every day. It's just crazy. And I would say that it's not comfortable being in diaspora while you have family where this thing is happening. So I can't just say that I'm scared. I'm not comfortable. And I think I'm just checking on my folks there and right now and then, just to make sure they're fine. But it is quite scary, to be honest. And fingers crossed, I'm hoping that we'll go past through this after a short period of time, which I mean is very optimistic, but fingers crossed that's what it should come to pass, and probably have our lives back to normal. But I mean, is scared. I think this is the time that I wish I would be with my family closer than even when I was with the first wave. But it can't happen now, so I'm just here alone, but just praying so hard that this thing passes and life goes back to normal. And I'll be able to meet my family back again.
Yeah, I think it's hard to even concentrate on what you meant to be doing, because your heart and your brain is also there. So I can't even begin to imagine what that must be like. But like you said, we all just hopeful that the end will come sooner rather than later. It's just really, I think the worst thing about this whole pandemic, especially for Africa, is that the vaccines are for people who don't know, it's very optimistic to say that the vaccines are going to come in June, whatever. It's a very optimistic conversation. And right now we're not sure. And we look on to the rest of the world where people are receiving vaccines left, right, and center. In fact, I was reading somewhere where they're saying politicians and these rich people are going overseas to get vaccines, while we don't. Yes, here in South Africa, there was a whole article about this. One of these rich guys here went to Sweden to go and get his vaccine. So you can imagine what the people, the politicians and the people with money, they're probably going to do that. But when will it get to the people here on the ground? And it's such a frustrating thing as you see
the celebrations of the vaccines and the rollouts, and it's great. But when you think about it, the African setting, you're like, logistically, is this really going to happen? And, already there's all this conspiracy theories and the buzzers. So that's why I just go like, but yeah, we just going to be optimistic. I think that's the only way.
Mm-hmm. I think, that's quite true. It is quite heartbreaking, I would say, to see that there hasn't been even a single person vaccinated in Africa at the moment, which is quite heartbreaking. And this just shows how healthy inequalities, I would say, are being exposed. But I have seen a couple of initiatives being put on ground. For example, I think there is University of Liverpool, if it's not Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine, trying to get people to donate towards vaccines that could be going on to Africa. And also, I think there's Gavi, the vaccine alliances and stuff. They're also trying to make, I think there are initiatives that they are trying to get vaccines to Africa, but we don't know when this is going to be. And now how things are escalating in Africa, I think we also equally need the vaccines just like here. So it is good that there are initiatives coming into place, but probably we're just hoping that it's not going to be too late. This whole thing is going to be accelerated so that Africa as well can start administering these vaccines. Because to be honest, with how COVID is, we, as people are saying, we are not safe until everyone is safe. So even if we are to vaccinate one part of the world and leave the other, this thing is not going to go away. Everyone needs to be safe for us to defeat COVID. So I'm just hoping that we're going to have the vaccines quite quickly in Africa. But also, I would say that maybe it's time also Africa governments also really put some funding into research, because I think this would have been very easier to make an African-based vaccine, I would say, probably being more optimistic. But I think that would have been a good scenario as well, to have like a vaccine that is made in Africa, so that Africans could be also a priority for that particular vaccine. But I'm sure we're going to get the vaccines, but probably just a little bit delayed. And with these initiatives, there is a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, I think we need more initiatives like those to get vaccines to Africa.
You are absolutely spot on. It's more evident now than ever how, like you said, that the health inequalities, the science inequalities, that we are very capable people here, or even people who are in the diaspora. We see it, we know it. And it's just a pity that there hasn't been a structure to kind of make this happen. And I think that's a whole nother different conversation, but it's something that we all know that it's not impossible. It's really, really not impossible. It would have saved a lot of lives. But hey, whenever it happens, we hope it's soon rather than later. And you're absolutely right that maybe now it will also be a big wake-up call. Somebody will be like, okay, maybe to prevent the next pandemic in the next, 100 years, let's start now with on the ground and start building these centers in Africa, or these institutes, or all of these things that can help us. So we are, and when, for example, when we have the Dr. Chikondis who come back to Malawi, yes, who come back, or even if they don't come back permanently, who give back their resources somehow, or, I don't know. I'm very optimistic that the future of science in Africa, it's at the precipice. It's about to to something big will happen. Maybe I'm just
you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right, because right now we see a lot of researchers being trained and a lot of very good scientists, I would say, that are on the continent, and all we need is probably a little bit of support and stuff because to make things happen, because you need to invest in research. It's not like just something that's going to happen. So probably with time, we have the capacity to in terms of expertise to do it, and we have very good collaborations with European countries as well. So I'm very also optimistic that with those things in place and maybe a little bit of support from our governments and the African continent as a whole, it's going to escalate inventions that are just meant for Africa. Because to be honest, you would say that most of the things that we use in Africa, we have to adopt them from somewhere else because there's not so much going on the continent. But I think with all this conversation starting up to grow, that no, I think we need African solutions for Africa. It's going to get somewhere someday. So yeah, you're absolutely right. We have the expertise. We just need a little bit of support to get things going. And I'm sure that we'll get there someday.
Definitely. And I think getting there someday also means we start younger. We get the younger generation early to be interested in science and to be motivated and inspired by seeing people like how...
Absolutely.
Yeah, you mentioned that for you, when you were growing up, you didn't even know, you were not exposed to that. So I think now we kind of need to have that representation where we have people, be it women, be it men, where the young generation can be like, hey, these people are doing this really amazing work. And maybe and I say this in inverted commas, the science revolution in Africa can be started by them, if not us, and with the support of people, of us, because obviously at that point we'll be older, but we have that mindset to welcome this change. And with that, Chikondi, I wanted to ask you that what advice, what golden nugget then, as we wrap up our conversation, would you give to somebody who could be the future of research in Africa, who might be listening, or if they're not listening, like about how to get into this field? It could be yours specifically as well.
I think that's a very good question. And to be honest, as someone who, I would say a PhD is the start off of your research career, they say. But I have learned a few things that I would want to share if you work hard. And if I'm here, they can also be here and probably do much more than I have done. But all you need is to go for it. What I mean is you need to commit to your studies and stuff and make sure that you grow in science. And I would also say that probably your research science, your career in research and science starts a little bit more later than your primary or secondary school, probably an undergrad, but not mostly in Malawi, as out of my experience, but maybe at a postgrad level and stuff. So what you need also to do is to find people who will support you. And what I didn't know is that there are a lot more people who are willing to do this just to take in newbies in science, to groom them. And people are excited to be doing this. And I think for me, there were some Malawians that really had interest in my growth as an upcoming scientist. So it's probably best to put your research ideas out there, to express your interest and find the right people who are going to nurture that. Because at the same time, you don't want to be in a toxic environment, I would say, because science is quite hard, but it's not that it's not doable, you know? but you need someone who is going to support you, who is going to fuel you to advance more. So I would advise some people people who really want to take this career to expose themselves, to make themselves known, get into something that they really hard, or work hard for it, because there are a lot of sacrifices that you do in science, working late and probably working over the weekends. There are a lot of sacrifices, but you just need to go for it and find people who are interested in making sure that you grow. If you find someone who can ask you the question that, what do you want to do? You just know that you're in the right place. Where do you see yourself? How can I help? Those are the people that you need to cling to make sure that you grow in your career. So I would advise people to expose themselves, especially, and make sure that whenever they find an opportunity, they give it their best, because that is when your career is boosted. You have to go out there, make collaborations, and advance. So I think that's what I would tell someone to do.
I love that, and that's great advice. That I think putting yourself out there and asking to volunteer, to ask, the worst thing that somebody can say is no. I always say this,
but then you have nothing to lose.
Exactly. So the worst thing, but usually more often than not, it's always a yes or not now, or try so and so. The worst case scenario is that you'll get a no, which is like, it's I mean, the no's hurt, yes, of course. That means you have to pick yourself up, but you would have lost nothing. It means you're still you're exactly where you were anyway, so why not try?
That's true.
Why not try?
That's true.
Why not try? Chikondi, it's been so great chatting with you about everything, and just especially this last part, just hearing about how you see the vision of this African scientist and the science that can be done, the potential, I think rather is the word, of the African scientists. It's been really amazing, and also hearing about your research as well. That was really good. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, and I really enjoyed our conversation. And to be honest, it's giving me food for thought for things that I really have to do, maybe to make a little bit, to contribute and make a little bit of a difference to research and science. So, and also probably grooming the upcoming or the people that would want to take this career path. So it's been lovely. I loved it too. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. And yes, please go all out and do all of those amazing things, so that it would take 5-10 years, we can come back on a bigger scale, on an international level, and we talk about these things of where are they now in our special. In our special of that time.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, and everybody else who's listening, thank you so much once again for tuning in, and thank you for listening to another episode of The Root of the Science with your girl, Anne with an E. Until next time, goodbye.